Hello, welcome. I'm making a new YouTube video for the first time in a very long time because today is a very exciting day for me. Today is the Chalnath release day. So I decided to try and make some content that I'd not seen anywhere else around on the web, and we're going to have a look at the Sororitas Novitiates kill team, mainly from a modelling perspective, although I'm sure to touch on some rules things as we go along. So yeah, I was very impressed with the Chalnath box. It's a massive box, absolutely full of plastic. I'm not going to go on too long about whether it's worthwhile and who it's worthwhile for in this video. I do have some thoughts about that. I've seen a lot of other people's thoughts on that across the internet already. That might come in a follow-up video where I talk about Chalnath in general as a product, but for this video I'm really just going to be focusing on the new Sisters of Battle kill team and my experiences and thoughts after having put together the 10 models that you get in the box. So the first miniature that you assemble, or if you're following the order in the instruction manual anyway, is the Superior, who takes a lot of design cues from the rest of the Sisters range. She fits right in with all the plastic models that have already come out for Warhammer 40,000. Lots of weapon options, which are a bit of a trap for kill team players, because obviously in kill team we don't pay points for our loadout, so you're always going to want to take the plasma pistol and the power sword. That you would never prefer the bolt pistol over the plasma pistol, and I can't really see a reason why you'd ever want to take the bolter. To be honest with you, I can't really see a reason why you'd ever want to take the bolter in Warhammer 40,000 either. It seems like a little bit of a trap for me, but I'll talk more about the rules for Warhammer 40,000 towards the end of the video. Building the model was pretty straightforward. No major pitfalls on this one. You get a choice of 3 separate heads, which is nice. I, along with most people on the internet, really feel that the head that I chose, of this piece here, C14, is by far the nicest head. You get these other 2 options, which are more sort of baroque and interesting, but also maybe a little silly. I think it's divisive, a bit like the helmeted head in the Exorcist kit, which is sort of half a cathedral. Some people are going to think they're amazing. I think maybe it's a bit much, but I will probably end up getting a second. In fact, I know that I'm going to end up getting a second set of these to round out some of my options for kill team. So I'll probably end up building a second Superior, and I will use one of the 2 alternate heads there. There's another alternate piece. There's this backpack sort of top flare bit, and it says, or it suggests, that you have to have one particular one if you're going to build the sword and plasma pistol, and the other one is for the bolter loadout. I don't see any reason why they have to be fixed for those loadouts. I was looking at it, and I maybe think that this piece here, the sort of C6 piece, looks better with the C14 head, because maybe if you were using one of the more pointy heads, it would kind of obscure the central detail on that backpack flare. I don't know, but I think there's no reason that your weapon loadout has to correspond with the backpack flare that you decide to use. So when I do a second set, I'll certainly be using the candles, but I'll be using probably the power sword and the bolt pistol in case I want that loadout in Warhammer 40,000. Then we've got the Novitiate Penitent, who is a pretty interesting model. Fluff-wise, they're sort of novitiates that have been a little bit wayward in some way, and so they've been forced to carry around the Eviscerator. Obviously, it's not quite, as we'll see later. Some of the miniatures are specifically training to do certain specialist roles within the Warhammer 40,000 army. This is kind of in there to fit that theme. The fluff more or less makes sense, as long as you don't squint about it. Okay. I think this is the first of the sort of main 9 models in the box, so we're going to look a little bit at the different alternate builds for each model, because that was a piece of information I really wanted to find on YouTube prior to release and that nobody had really talked about. So for the majority of models, and I'll flag it up when that's not the case, you can choose to build one with a basic, as we see in the blue here, one with a basic pistol and the sword, one with the auto gun, and then you've got the specialist that's usually in pink, and when that changes I'll let you know. This model was a little tricky to build. It was probably one of the two in the set that gave me any kind of problem at all. You know, the giant chainsaw, the eviscerator, that's what it's called, the eviscerator, where anywhere where you've got to do that thing where you've got to glue one shoulder, and then you've got to glue the midpoint, and then you've got to glue sort of the wrist and the third shoulder, and you've got to get it balanced just so, is always a little bit more tricky. And it did take me a little while to really line up both arms correctly on the model. And I'm really trying to assemble these with a lot of care and attention, because I do intend to main these in kill team, make these my main kill team now. And that means that I'll be going to events and people will be sort of scrutinise our models a little bit more than some of the other models in my collection. One other thing I wanted to touch on here that I just thought was really funny, all of the miniatures are modelled with an empty holster, because when you assemble them holding their pistols, the sort of the blue option here, you know, they don't want to accidentally have two pistols. But as a result of that, when you assemble them in their specialist formation, as I've done, even though they have a pistol on the datasheet for kill team, it's vanished. They've lost it somewhere. Now maybe she's dropped it, maybe she ran out of ammo and threw it to one side. I don't know, but it just seems like a little bit of an oversight there. It might have been nice if the kit had come with a little sort of pistol butt that you could glue into the holster. I don't know. I tried to sort of file one off the auto pistols that I wasn't using, but it didn't look very good, so I didn't bother. Anyway, that's the Novitiate Penitent. I've talked for ages about that one, but we'll move on to the next one. The Hospitaller, yeah. Obviously, this is sort of in training to be what the full version that we get in Big Hammer. And again, you've got the option of building the sort of close combat version, the ranged version, or the specialist, as we have here. In terms of kill team rules, you know, this is a standard medic. And I think it's really interesting now that we're getting a few more plastic kill teams, and we're starting to be able to get that lexicon where we can talk about the teams in terms of, oh, this is a medic, it does the medic thing. This is a comms, it does the comms thing, that sort of thing. So yeah, your standard medic. Perfectly fine model to put together, quite interesting, got a couple of fun extra pieces on it, no problems there at all. We'll move on. The Relic Bearer, a slight bit of interest to this one. So if you play Kill Team, it's one of your specialists. If you play Warhammer 40,000, it's really interesting. This is one of the only Kill Team specialists that has rules in Warhammer 40,000 as well, because you can give yourself this piece of war gear in Big Hammer as well for the squad, and it lets you use a faith ability, even if you've already used one that turn, in exactly the same way that this you see these same relics being borne by other Sisters of Battle units in 40k, so it's relevant there. In terms of a game of Kill Team, I think it generally acts like a normal banner. I've got the book here. I don't want to get it wrong. I've not played a game with these yet. Obviously, I've just built them today. So if you're incapacitated and if an operative is incapacitated within red and visible of this operative on a 4-up, it can immediately perform a free shoot action. So it's kind of evocative of the Space Marine Ancient, I guess, in 40k, where if you die and you're near a banner, you can have sort of one last shot. And then also you can plant the icon for an action point. You can put it down within white of the center of an objective marker, and until the objective is next activated, if it's within white at the center of the objective, you halve the APL of enemy operatives when determining who controls that objective marker. So a bit interesting, a bit different from the kill team rules for the same piece of equipment on the Compendium Sisters team. But very useful sounding and very interesting. Obviously, we'll have to see until I've played some games what my opinion is of how useful that actually is. And the Exactor. So the Exactor is obviously training to be the leader of a Sisters Repentia squad. Very much got the neural whips that the leader of the Repentia fire team has. And she has what I'm pretty sure is exactly the same rule, where you can spend an action point to whip someone into frenzy. If you whip the Novitiate Penitent, that's the one with the giant sword, then it gets to add both an extra action point, and it gets to add an extra circle to its move in exactly the same way as the Repentia Superior does for the Repentia. If you whip anybody else, they get the extra action point, but they don't get the extra point of movement. They don't get the extra circle of movement. And you can't whip your Superior because the Superior is supposed to be in charge. In terms of miniature and assembly, there's really nothing important to mention here. Obviously, shaving some of the little sprue marks on the little whip is always really troublesome. I find it troublesome, and I just wonder how well those whips are going to travel. I always wonder that with whippy models. One thing I did notice on this miniature that's quite interesting that I didn't use. You'll notice if you build the green, the ranged one here, it actually tells you to use a different piece, C49. And on both the other examples, the face is C46. Now, the reason for that's really simple. I was looking at it for a while to try and figure it out. The shooting one here, the green version here, has a grenade, and the C49 face actually has the ring pull for the grenade in her teeth, right? So if you're making this version of the model, then you get your own special face for that particular miniature, which is kind of evocative of one of the really old original Jez Goodwin Metal Sisters of Battle is pulling that face, right? Is pulling out a grenade ring pull with her teeth, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, I don't think either in Kill Team or in Warhammer 40,000 you're ever going to want to build the autogun version of these models, but I'll talk more about that later. I suppose it is just worth noting as well how the heads work on these miniatures. I don't know if you can see from the instructions, they sort of come with the cowls modelled onto the body, and then you glue in the faceplate, so you don't have that traditional head join, that sort of ball and socket head joint. You have to kind of just pick the face to go on. So for conversions and things, I'm not going to say it's impossible, because people are absolute wizards when it comes to kit bashes and things, but it's not going to be as simple, as if you were doing a conversion based on some Space Marine miniatures. I mean, I built the new Black Templars recently, and I found they were absolute joy to play around with and convert, because for all they are modern Games Workshop models, they've still got this sort of really posable arm joints and those Space Marine shoulder pauldrons, and the helmets all fit in those common joints, and you really can go back through, decades of Space Marine bits and swap and change. Whereas the Sisters range, and especially these new Novitiates, are just they go together, they're one way, and if you want to swap and change things, you may be setting yourself up for a little bit of work. But the Preceptor's an interesting one. So she's not, she's not got a lot of really interesting things about her. She's got a big mace that she whacks people with. So you'd think a melee fighter. But what I think that they were going for is that, and the name escapes me off the top of my head, that she is training to be the new character they added to the Sisters of Battle, the one that's basically a Sisters of Battle chaplain, right? So that's the idea, that she's like a sort of inspirational buffing character, and so she's got various sort of buffing abilities. So unflinching determination. Each time a shooting attack is made against a friendly Novitiate operative, in the roll defense dice step of your shooting attack, if this operative is visible and within blue of it, you can re-roll one of your defense dice. So she just has that. And then for an action point, she can turn on until the end of the turning point. Each time a friendly Novitiate operative fights in combat, in the roll attack dice step of the combat, if it's within red of this operative, you can re-roll your attack dice results of 1 or a 2. potentially pretty powerful, but I can see being difficult to use, difficult to get into position correctly. The mace is pretty cool though. It has the new Inferno critical rule, and it's also got the stun rule. So a pretty powerful character, both in terms of buffing and in terms of combat ability. I'm going to go back and while I'm literally, you can't see me because I haven't turned my camera on, but while I'm literally flicking through the book, I'm just going to go back and correct something I said before about auto pistols. Not every operative in the Novitiate kill team has an auto pistol, but it's super inconsistent, right? So the Penitent, that's the one with the giant chainsword, they have their auto pistol. But the Exactor, the one with the whips, doesn't have the auto pistol. I guess because you can use the whips as a ranged weapon, that's fair enough. But then while I was just looking at the Preceptor that we're looking at on the screen now doesn't have the auto pistol. So by and large they do, unless they've got another ranged weapon. But it's not a foregone conclusion. So this Preceptor's just carrying around an empty pistol holster, but can't ever have a ranged attack, which is kind of interesting. I wonder if that is something that's going to be FAQ'd, whether she should also have that pistol, because I can understand the Exactor not having it, because as I say, those whips have got their weird ranged blue kind of ranged attack, but the Preceptor doesn't have one. Interesting. The Dialogus, obviously the sort of trainee version of the Dialogus from Big Warhammer 40,000. Really interesting miniature. This really much more detailed than all the others. You know, there's a lot of detail on that. My photograph's not doing it justice, but there's a lot of detail on that Dialogus stave that will take well to a wash and some dry brushing, I think, to bring it up. And she's got the parchment, which is really good for one of those. There's some transfers. You get the full Sisters of Battle transfer sheet in this set, and that'll be really good for one of those text transfers with sort of handwritten text effect. And then she's got this little kind of speaker thing on some little floaty dangly wires that goes on her base as well. I wondered if, because she has two unique actions, you see. She has Stirring Rhetoric for one action point, which lets you select a friendly Novitiate operative and add one to its APL. So the comms thing, right? It goes back to what I was saying before. She can do the standard comms thing, but she can also has this auto broadcaster ability. So you can place a condemning sermon token within red of the operative, while an enemy operative is within white of the center of the token, worsen the ballistics characteristic of ranged weapons it's equipped with by 1. In the ready operative step of each turning point, remove the condemning sermon token. So I was thinking maybe an idea would be to base that little extra piece up separately, so it can be your token for your auto broadcaster. That's the name of the action, is auto broadcaster. But I'm getting a second set of these novitiates anyway to build some of the different configurations. I'll be getting those from a friend of mine on Monday. So maybe I'll base up that little component on a little standard 25mm base to use as that token for that ability as well. I want to say as well, I'm really pleased that I'm getting a second set of these, because there's the pose on the ordinary close combat one that's an alternative build of this miniature. It's just a really lovely action sort of pose and sculpt with her drawing her sword from the scabbard there. I think that's really cool. The Duellist, another sort of, you generally divide this team into two categories, with one or two exceptions. You're either a buffer or a close combat character. The Duellist is a close combat character, and their only really awesome thing that they do, but it's pretty awesome, is when they're fighting in combat, if they parry with a critical hit, they also get to inflict the damage that they would if they'd chosen to attack with a critical hit. So you can have your cake and eat it, and it's lethal 5+. So on all your 5s and 6s, you can both parry an enemy attack and then still do your 4 damage with your dueling blades, which is pretty cool. Miniature wise, really straightforward. You know, 2 separate arms. She's got a sword and a knife, and honestly, she doesn't look all that different from the standard. Haven't built any standard close combat novitiates, but she doesn't look that different from those. Okay. Now a bit more to say on the Condemnor. So first of all, the Condemnor is a really powerful piece in game. She has the standard kind of sniper setup where you can shoot, where you've got a silenced weapon, so you can shoot out of concealment. You never have to unconceal. So your first port of call is going to be, well, I'm going to try and get her up onto a vantage point. I'm going to sit up on my vantage point, shooting my silenced weapon, damage 2-3. I've got piercing 1 and mortal wounds 2, so maybe I'm going to be using faith points to try and guarantee some critical hits, and with those critical hits, I'll take down a lot of enemy operatives every turn. You should be able to get a kill every turn, unless people are really hiding from you, hitting out your lines of sight. But then she also has a really good ability in the Null Rod that she carries. So the Null Rod, if someone does get close to her, if they're within red of the operative, their APL cannot be higher than 2. So if you're playing against an elite team, and someone comes up to you with a Harlequin or a Custode or a Space Marine, something like that, well, they've lost one of their APL, and the APL is a really big balancing factor when it comes to just how few models those teams can take. So a bit sort of cross purposes there, really, because you want to be within red. If you're playing against an elite team, you want to get it to within red, so you can reduce the APL down to 2, and yeah. Otherwise, you want her up on a vantage point shooting from concealment. But a really powerful piece either way. This miniature can actually make 4 different models. So, in addition to the standard, the close combat and the ranged, you've also got one of the 2 flamethrowers here. So when I get a second box, I'm probably going to build 2 flamethrowers. So that will be what I use that miniature for. And that brings us on to the last model that we've got to look at, the Pronatus, which is really the only really disappointing thing about the whole box I really have to talk about. So, for whatever reason, when they tooled the sprue, Games Workshop decided that the same miniature was going to build all 5 of these variants here. Okay? Now, you might not care if you're a Kill Team exclusive player. The sort of banner that you can see there, that has rules in Big Hammer in 40k, and you want to include that if you're using this squad in Warhammer 40,000, because it makes them much better at close combat. In Kill Team, it doesn't really have rules. You could use it as your relic in preference to the birdhouse type thing that we looked at before if you wanted to, but it doesn't have its own set of rules. But the same miniature also makes the other flamer. Okay, so if, like me, you plan to buy 2 boxes of these and you play both Kill Team and 40k, and you want both a Pronatus and a banner and a flamer, well, you're just going to have to hope that those flamer arms can be made to fit onto one of the other bodies, I guess. And I'll find out that on Monday. I'll have a look at them and try and get those flamer arms to fit onto one of the other bodies. And when this kit comes out for the 40k players and people are picking up just to play 40k, I imagine they're going to want to build 2 flamers and this flag here shown in green, because that is the sort of optimum loadout for the squad. And again, you can't go and buy what the sort of default layout in the booklet is. It can't be done. Now, I'm pretty sure those arms, you should be able to find another model and find the auto gun version and instead fit those flamer arms onto it, but it's just a shame that Games Workshop have laid the sprues out and planned the kit in that way. The Pronatus, as far as it goes, is probably the most powerful model available in Kill Team. Okay, if you're on a point, I don't want to read it off the top of my head. I'm going to find the actual page. So if you spend an action point, you can gain 2 faith points, and faith points are really. I'm not going to go into the full rules. If you want a rules breakdown, there's other people on YouTube that have far better idea of how to play the game than me and have gone through all the rules. But faith points are really, really good. They enable you to be really, really consistent, to guarantee hits, to guarantee crits, and to get loads more rerolls than any other kill team in the game. And every turn you get 3, and so every turn she's alive you're guaranteed to get another 2, and if she's parked on an objective for the same action you can get 3 instead. Really, really powerful piece, and I think you're going to take her in every single iteration of this kill team that I can think of. Okay, apparently I've been talking for over 25 minutes, which I find very difficult to believe, but there you go. I'm just going to quickly sum up. So there are 2 other operatives that I haven't been able to build. The standard militant, which can either be armed with close combat weapons and auto pistols, or an auto gun, and the Pronatus, which is the flamethrower, and you can build 2 of those. You can put 2 of those in your kill teams. I'm going to be getting a second set of these, so a very good friend of mine who I play kill team against most Fridays has also bought Chalnath. He's going to be selling me his set, so I should have a second set on Monday, and I'm going to build those up really as I would want to use them in Warhammer 40,000, which probably is mostly as militants with close combat weapons, with the other kind of flag that I talked about, and 2 flamers. And then I'll make a leader with a bolt pistol and a power sword, and that should give me all the options I need for kill team, as well as a kind of optimized squad for 40k, where I can swap in the relic bearer and the other flag, and I can swap between having a plasma pistol or a bolt pistol depending on what's in the rest of my army list. The one thing I'm not building is any auto guns or the bolter armed squad leader, because I can't see either in kill team or in Warhammer 40,000 why you'd ever want to sort of configure these for long range. Not sure about that. I'm going to upload this video, I'm going to watch it back and see what I think about it, and I'm going to look to see if I get any views and comments and likes and things, and try and decide whether I want to make a bash of this YouTube thing again, make a few more YouTube videos in this style. If this style is okay, it's much easier for me to do a video like this than it was to do the ones that I was uploading previously, where I was actually recording everything. A bit of personal background, I'm a teacher, so over lockdown I've made an awful lot of narrated PowerPoints, so I'm quite au fait with making a narrated PowerPoint. So please, if you have any thoughts or anything like that, please do write a comment. Obviously it's it's my first proper video in a very long time, in almost a year I think, so a comment here or there will be great, and I hope you enjoyed it, and with a bit of luck I will see you again soon for another video, probably about Chalnath again. Alright, have a really good rest of your day, and yeah, hope you enjoyed it.